Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's Tour Catch-Up, sponsored by DownloadTennis.com.
Swiatek dismantles the field in Doha.
Medvedev rules in Rotterdam.
And awesome Alcaraz lights up Buenos Aires.
Kim, Chris, today is the 20th of February and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ, especially backed by our crowdfunders Alexandra McClelland and Julie Tharp. It's been another fascinating week on the ATP and WTA Tours. We've had mayhem and destruction in Doha, courtesy of Iga Swiatek. Carlos Alcaraz has returned after 4 months to the tour with a bang in Buenos Aires, and Daniil Medvedev is back into the top 10 with the title in Rotterdam. And guys, I am very excited because all of this tennis has happened and it's pancake day tomorrow, so I'm also really looking forward to that.
Straight to the food. I love it. Straight to what's coming up. Yeah, I don't sod the tennis. Let's talk about pancakes. It's the most exciting day of the year, is it not? Especially if you're a fan of eggs, flour and Nutella, like myself.
What do you prefer? Like, are you like a crepe person or a buttermilk American style, like a short stack pancakes?
I normally go for the crepe style.
Not a galette, Kim. No.
A galette?
Not a galette.
What is a galette?
I believe it's made with buckwheat flour.
Oh, a buckwheat pancake. No,
More
I'm very...
savoury.
You just made that up.
Oh, no, I've got to go sweet, I think. I'm a very traditional, like, Nutella girl. I do like lemon and sugar, though. Lemon and sugar's, pretty damn good. Joel, what do you have for your... not fried chicken on your pancakes?
No, unsurprisingly, it is lemon sugar, which
Mando
I feel
sauce,
is very basic and very uninspiring. However, I was in this exact conversation with my friends yesterday, and one person I was speaking to said that they have a crepe wrapped around a pepperami stick.
Wow. Is that...
And everyone just went silent when that was sort of announced in the group.
Oh, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Well, it's like
Something you
chorizo
keep to
and
yourself.
pancakes and, maybe. I don't know.
Two things that maybe you shouldn't mix.
Well, I'm going to try out tomorrow and see what it tastes like.
Can report
You'll
back
have to tell us next time. Joel, you'll be very jealous, though, because in Denmark, we actually have a special extra sweet treat called a fastelavnsbolle, which is... a big, heavy bun filled with cream on the 19th of February. I'm not sure why, but I'm doing the double whammy from one of them to Pancake Day. So
what's it called? A fastelavnsbolle. Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
We've gone from pepperami wrapped around a crepe to some sounds like a very cultural and sounds quite tasty, actually. Danish tradition.
That's why I'm on the podcast, for those
big,
cultural
heavy buns.
moments.
Absolutely. Without further ado, perhaps we should talk about some tennis, or we could be here all night debating the various pros and cons of pancake toppings. But yeah, I mean, we've had quite a lot happen this week, including some, my personal, before I ask you guys, my personal favourite thing about this week, and we will get onto it in more detail later, is actually talking about buns and pancakes. It's the Swiatek bakery, because it's just reopened and she'll be selling a lot of bread sticks and bagels and buns and all sorts going forward if she continues her run of form, because she won the title out in Doha, but she lost 5 games on the way to the title, which is, I think, a record. I think that's the first time that's happened in 98 years that a player has lost so few games. So that's just, for me, that's my stat of the week. That's my fun fact of the week.
Kim, I'm not going to lie, I was not happy with that trail of destruction involving Danielle Collins. I mean, that was the most sort of get your own back on that Australian Open semi-final as it could be. I mean, the first set alone, Danielle Collins won 8% of her points on serve. 8%. Shocking.
Yeah,
it's and not right.
No winners, 13 errors. She won 4 points in the whole set. It was over in 21 minutes.
It's bad.
Absolute
painful.
obliteration.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, Swiatek is serving up some nice sweet treats at the moment. But Joel, what got your interest this week? Obviously, apart from thinking about your pancakes.
Yeah, well, it was actually all the way over in Delray Beach, and it concerned Jack Sock, who lost in the first round to what could be maybe the comeback story of the year, already kind of sewn up on the ATP Tour. 33-year-old Matija Pekatic, who defeated Sock. He was a last-minute alternate in qualifying. He has a full-time job in real estate investment. He's a director of capital markets. I think he's a very, very clever chap. He had a couple of goes, I think, at a tennis career. COVID obviously did not help, and the pandemic. He also, I think, had an injury that again put tennis on the back burner. Went and did some, I think he went to Harvard Business School and chose basically a different path. But has come back, took a chance, wanted to see where he could go. He felt like he was playing good tennis, and unbelievably, at 33 years old, he picked up his first ever victory on the ATP Tour.
There's hope for you still, Joel.
Who's he going to jack in his real estate as a result? I mean, I'm just thinking you could have a combination of Breakpoint and Selling Sunset and combine the two, like Netflix series.
I love it.
Estate,
like, by the day, I'm a tennis player, but by the night, I'm just like calling the stock market. Just some moonlighting going on.
But yeah, Joel, you still have got some time to get your
ATP debut
tennis career.
Yes, I was also thinking that. It's like, there's still time for me. There's still time to make that journey.
It's never too late. And Chris, I think you mentioned something this week which got us both a bit flabbergasted, really. But it also concerns a player that has maybe a bit of a side hustle. Is that right?
Yeah, an interest outside the court. You're never too late to switch up your career. We're in the time of the second career, and Lorenzo Sonego has managed to break the 1 million streams for his, believe it's his second song, and solo secondo, which Kim, as the linguist of the group, in Italian, do we know what that means by any chance?
A single second?
Only a
second?
That sounds correct. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
I mean,
I had to translate that. It's a collaboration, and I'd call it a sad end of summer bop would be the vibe that I'd give. I think it was kind of 2021 Wimbledon. Not sure how he performed, but maybe not particularly well that year. But it got me thinking about some of the epic musical the musical side hustles we've had from players such as Caroline Wozniacki with the smash hit Oxygen.
Who can forget?
We Love Our Tennis, a duet with Agnieszka Radwanska. But I had to see who was the most successful in the music off court, and it was, of course, Yannick Noah, who has had millions of albums sold. I mean, how could I forget?
Didn't they have
I was going to say, the Bryan brothers... Well, the Bryan brothers did actually have a song called Autograph, which featured Andy Murray doing a rap. So if we get the copyright, Joel, please insert a clip around about now.
Well, yeah, I know. We were discussing. It's like, can we get away with playing some of Sonego's song in the pod without infringing on copyright? But we're probably going to leave it. But listeners, if you want to go have a listen, it is on Spotify. Just type in Lorenzo Sonego. And you can go hear it all in all its glory. I agree with you, Chris. I think it's a decent song. And who knows? Maybe he is thinking, because I'm thinking, players love to come out.
Eurovision.
It's very Eurovision, Kim. It is.
I'm not thinking Eurovision. I'm thinking, players coming out to walk on music specifically in like indoor arenas. If I'm Lorenzo Sonego, for me, that's free PR. I'm telling the DJ, play my song. Otherwise, I'm not coming out.
I'm not sure you'd want just a second unless you're winning the match. Otherwise, it's over before it started.
Yeah, bad omen. No, I love that. I'm going to go give his tune a listen as soon as we finish recording. And I suggest our listeners do the same, whether you like it or not. Check it out. Well, let's look at the actual tennis now. But one player who, was probably on and off the court in just a second, like Sonego's song, was Iga Swiatek, because she won her title in Doha without breaking a sweat, really. She was on and off, very sharpish in all her matches, winning the title for the loss of just 5 games across the whole tournament. A lot of players would lose 5 games in a set, let alone across, 4 matches. She actually only played 3 matches. She had a walkover and a bye in the first round. But when she did play and take to the court, it was 6-love, 6-1 over Daniil Collins. Then she had a 6-love, 6-1 over Veronika Kudermetova, and then a 6-3, 6-love against Jessie Pegula. Now, these are not players who are, down in the dumps of the rankings. They are players who are at the higher echelons of the game. Chris, was this just Swiatek back to her absolute best dominant form, or does this indicate a wider problem, perhaps, with the fact that players of a similar ranking are just not able to compete when Swiatek is playing decent tennis?
It's a bit of both, I reckon. Clearly, she was playing well, but the conditions in Doha are quite challenging in the sense that you do get some swirling wind. And I think it's about your ability to be able to adapt to it. And I think that's something that Iga is very good at. We've seen her win in the very cold October in Paris, I think it was, when a lot of players were struggling with those conditions. I was very surprised by the Collins result, particularly. That is very surprising because she's not a player that kind of gives you a win. Normally she'll find a way to dig deep or she'll be able to lift her game. So I think she must have been playing some pretty exceptional tennis, even though it doesn't look like much resistance was put up by some of these top players.
Sounds like there was more wind resistance than
more wind resistance. Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up, Joel.
But I was a little bit disappointed. Yeah, we didn't get the Swiatek Bencic quarterfinal. I mean, we should have got Swiatek Azarenka. Bencic did immensely well to kind of come through that very long match. I mean, she lost the first set 6-1 and Azarenka really did have it on her racket. But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed we didn't get that matchup because I did think that those were, they are 2 of the players who, world number 1, and Bencic probably one of the most formed players on the tour at the moment. So maybe Bencic would have, if able to take to the court, would have given her a better run for her money. But I was interested to read about Swiatek and her mental approach and how she was talking about focusing not necessarily on the WTA rankings based off of the last year results, but actually just on the race, which is just your results from 2023. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective because, we're all talking about, how many points has she got to defend? Is that pressure going to get to her? Well, it sounds like she's just, using this to kind of block that out and just think, well, I've just got this year. I'm not going to compare and look into the past. All I'm going to do is focus and look ahead. And perhaps, again, that's what has helped her in this tournament and just focus on the situation at hand.
Yeah, I think that's quite a sensible strategy actually, because every year, whatever we're doing in our lives, we're a different person. From month to month, year on year, we have different experiences, different things we can build on. So it's kind of unfair, I think, to compare yourself to exactly that time last year and what you were doing. Just like I wouldn't want to compare myself to the me of 4 years ago, because probably quite different due to the experiences we've had in between. So I think that's a really sensible strategy, and I think it will enable her to just focus on that given match. And we know that is when she is her most destructive, when she doesn't have all that other sort of all those other thoughts clouding her headspace. But Chris, what did you make of I mean, you spoke about it's a bit of both. It's Swiatek being very dominant, but also the strength of the women's field. But I mean, as a ticket holder attending Swiatek's matches, you would not really want to see the world number, would you? But just in terms of having kind of value for money, you'd probably be wanting to go and see Maria Sakkari play Caroline Garcia, because that went down to the wire, for example, providing a lot more kind of entertainment, if you like. But yeah, I mean, what did you make of the fact that Swiatek has just claimed this new kind of statistic? I think the first player this century to win so few games en route to the title. I mean, do you think we're going to see that statistic beaten at any time soon? Will she beat her own record? Will it be 4 games next tournament?
Well, I think it's something where people do love to see Iga playing well. And so I think having had a period where she hasn't had that dominance, everyone enjoyed the winning streak. No one was bored of that at all. I think that was kind of headline news. So seeing her kind of get back onto the tour and playing well and picking up the title is something that people would definitely welcome. I think the nature of it has added some excitement because people do enjoy when Iga is handing out baked goods. But then at the same time, as you say, we've just been talking about the strength of the top 10 and strength of the women's game. And then Iga rocks up in Doha and kind of makes a mockery of some of the comments that we've made, because it's clear that no one is in her league when she's playing well on an outdoor court. I think on an indoor court, it's probably a little bit different. If I was a ticket holder, it's great to see a player playing well. I prefer to see two players playing well. I think we're all in agreement there. And when Djokovic or Nadal have been pretty dominant, we've never seen scores like this as consistently. I mean, 3 bagels in 3 matches, and it's been a bit of a non-event from a competition perspective, but quite a significant event in terms of Iga getting back to the top.
I mean, that conversation literally changed in the space of a week, didn't it? Because this time last week, we were like, oh my God, have we seen the field in Doha, the 500 event? Wow, it's completely stacked. And now this week, we're kind of questioning, like...
It's irrelevant.
Yeah, like it's
3 rounds
crazy.
of qualifying.
Yeah,
I mean, just before we move on to kind of talk about the ATP matches, just for the purposes of providing the full context to the stat, I mentioned before that the last time someone had only lost 5 games to win a title was actually Suzanne Lenglen in 1925, and that was at Wimbledon. I mean, just think back.
Goodness.
It's almost a whole century.
I love how it's a player that is known for the French Open, Suzanne Lenglen, and has done it on the grass courts at Wimbledon.
Yeah, and she used to come on court swigging brandy. I think she had like brandy in a hip flask, and just think how different the style of tennis was, the outfit. I mean, it's just a completely different era. So who would have thought, 98 years later that would happen again? And so that's what I've just loved that this week. No offense to the fans who wanted a really competitive, final between Swiatek and Pegula, the top 2 seeds, but it was just, cemented Iga's place in history, I guess. But let's look at the results from the men's side, because we had a plethora of tournaments for the men's tennis in the last week. Let's look at Rotterdam, the 500 event out in the Netherlands. And a former world number 1 winning this title, Daniil Medvedev, back to winning ways, winning in 3 sets over Jannik Sinner in the final. 5-7, 6-2, 6-2. I think Medvedev, with that result, is now back into the top 10. I think he's back in at number 8. And this is his 16th title on the tour. Although, interestingly, Joel, I think this is the earliest in the season he's maybe won a title. I think usually we see him kind of peaking towards the latter stages of the season, the US Open and the US hard courts, for example. But what did you make of Medvedev this week in Rotterdam?
Yeah, it was interesting because you compare this to last season. His last season didn't really get going. We had to wait until 7-8 months into the season for his form to really, really pick up. So I think he'll be really happy that he's been able to just get a tournament win. So early on in the season, and a big tournament as well. It's not a 250. 500 in Rotterdam, again, pretty decent field, and for me, it's crazy to think this is his biggest title win since the 2021 US Open. And, I think he played very, very well, I think, later on in the tournament. I think, he started a little bit shakily, dropped that first set to Davidovich Fokina in his first match. But, in the final, I think it was just familiar stories with him and Jannik Sinner. It's a very nice matchup for Medvedev. If you look at their head-to-head, I think they're now 6-0 in favour of Medvedev. And although Sinner was able to take that first set, again, Medvedev, I think, just adapted himself a little bit in the next 2 sets. And we all know his kind of court coverage, his amazing wall-like, octopus-like defensive skills. And I think they were really on show, particularly in the second and third sets. So no, I think Sinner will be disappointed, after taking that first set. I don't think there was much he could do in terms of the way Medvedev elevated his game.
Yeah, because Sinner was coming into this tournament off the back of a win in Montpellier, clinching the title. So he was kind of going for 2 titles on the trot, really.
Had a good win against Tsitsipas as well. I think that was his first win against a top 3 opponent. And I was thinking, That's I was watching the highlights and he was absolutely beaming after, clinching that victory. And yeah, he rode that confidence all the way through to the final. But again, it's just a little bit disappointing from Sinner because it always seems to end in a familiar story in terms of, I come up against someone a bit better than me and they go on and win, a la Daniil Medvedev.
Yeah, because Sinner was trying very much to kind of come in a lot more in that first set, which did create a bit of doubt in Medvedev's game. But Medvedev was kind of able to get on top of that, and like you said, that kind of 6-0 head-to-head is
it's hard to put that out your mind as well, isn't it? Going into a final.
It is, yeah. And Chris, just sort of other results from Rotterdam in the week. Holger Rune had to retire. I'm not going to come to you every week, don't worry, just because he's Danish and you interviewed him. But just, bit of a shame there. He lost out to Gilles Brewer, who's the one of the home hopes. But another home hope, Talon Griegspoor, getting to the semi-finals, and also a semi for Grigor Dimitrov. So was there any results in Rotterdam that kind of caught your eye this week, Chris?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, it's great having Medvedev back and playing good tennis. I think that first match that he played was actually probably the biggest thing that kind of decided that whole tournament. I think Davidovich Fokina was playing very well and Medvedev looking at his coach being like, I don't really believe in my game and it's probably going to end up being a 6-4, 6-4 result, he said. That's why he had that sort of the rolling sort of motion, because he said just continue playing, keep playing, you'll play yourself into form. So that was probably one of the biggest results of the tournament, because if he hadn't have kind of got his act together, we wouldn't be seeing the resurgence of him here. Other results, the Sinner thing, I think he did well to pick up a 250 last week, but against Medvedev, I don't think it ever looked like he was going to get that done after that first set. I think he had a really clear game plan in the first set, and then he was just trying to pull the trigger too early, like he was out of ideas. And you have to be really patient against someone like Medvedev, especially on an indoor court. And for me, it was kind of the lack of point construction in that last set. It just felt like a bit of a foregone conclusion. So there was some good matches earlier in the week, I'd say. Obviously with Holger, it's a shame that he was injured and he had to pull out. I think he'd been playing too much tennis. I was shocked that he went from Davis Cup straight to Montpellier and then to Rotterdam. And I think if you take an example of someone like Iga, who's taking some time off, she looked fresh as anything, and she's even fresher after barely stepping on court this week. So I think maybe it would be good for some of these sort of players who are really plugging away at the moment, such as Sinner, who's playing this week as well, to take a bit of time and kind of get their head straight and get themselves into peak condition, because it did look like physically he was struggling.
It's quite difficult with scheduling, isn't it?
I did enjoy the fact that we did get a Stan Wawrinka Richard Gasquet second round match in 2023. I mean, that's a throwback,
but Joel,
isn't it?
It's funny you mentioned Gasquet, because I think this cues our newest segment. Who is the current top Frenchman in the ATP ranking?
He's the only French male player, I believe, in the top 50.
Richard Gasquet.
Yeah, he seems to be.
Wow.
He just seems to be
perennial,
still doing it on the tour, which is fair play. He's got incredible longevity. But yeah, I was almost a little bit surprised because Wawrinka defeated Bublik. I know Bublik's been on a bit of a losing streak. I think he stopped that today, and yeah, Gasquet came through PCB. So it was quite a vintage throwback matchup there, and it was nice to see. I think Grigor Dimitrov get to a semi-final. I think it's always nice to see him play well, get to the far end of a big tournament, and he had some very good wins, particularly against de Minaur. Third set tiebreak was very, very fine. Had an incredible passing shot winner on match point. So quite like seeing Dimitrov do well in that bottom half of the draw.
Yeah, I'm surprised Bublik has any rackets left to play with.
He had to borrow one, I heard. That's the rumour, Kim. Yeah.
Oh, shouldn't go smashing them around, should he? And just one last thing on Rotterdam. Joel, I know you're a purveyor of slightly odd tour-level trophies. The Rotterdam Trophy, explain. It's like I can't really make head or tail of it.
Yeah, it's a very odd one. It's like a square that like YouTubers get as a kind of a celebration if they get like 100,000 subscribers. They go like a plaque, and I wonder if that was the inspiration behind what Medvedev is seemingly holding, which I feel looks more like a plaque than a trophy.
A window of an ice hotel?
Yeah, it looks like something that would be in the waiting room of a spa or salon.
It looks like something he nicked from that ice hotel in Die Another Day, doesn't it?
It does a bit, but at
Love
least he's
the
got
James
himself a
Bond
pretty
reference.
hefty paperweight, you know?
Yeah, or doorstop. Yeah, that's what
Doorstop,
we go
great
to
doorstop,
Rotterdam
Kim.
for.
Hey, well, we know anything goes. Anything goes when it comes to making up the trophy design of an ATP and WTA Tour event.
It's stackable, Joel. That's quite good. Stackable, unlike some of them, which are quite pointy. You might not get the Paris Masters
That
trophy
is
on
true.
a flight.
That is very true. Yeah.
Yeah, at least you can transport the Rotterdam one home
That
easily.
would be quite cool, actually, for like, imagine like Rafa, he's won like Barcelona like 11 times or whatever, and actually each trophy was like a jigsaw or a part of a puzzle that, completed a mosaic or something. I don't know. It'd be quite funny.
Let's have a look at what happened out in Delray Beach, which is the ATP 250 event. Cam Norrie, I think, was the defending champion here, but had elected to play in Argentina instead, which we think is to do with the fact that he was in Colombia for Davis Cup just prior. Defending champion, not out in Delray Beach, but a whole plethora of, as you would expect, American players, as it's on their home turf. And it was an American player who won, because it was Taylor Fritz who came through to clinch this title up against the Serbian Miramir Kekmanovic in the final. 6-love, 5-7, 6-2. So bit of a second set hiccup for Taylor Fritz, but he managed to come through pretty comfortably either side of that second set to get the title. It's his 5th ATP Tour title and his first of the season. Chris, what did you make of the final and Taylor Fritz this week? He was the top seed, so theoretically on paper it was his to lose, looking at kind of the other players that we had in the draw.
Yeah, I think it's one of those 250s that we talked about, I think, last week, that you expect the top seed to come away with it, a bit like when Yannick Sinner took the 250 in Montpellier, and I think it was similar sort of results on the WTA where, well, no, not similar, because we thought Sakari would be the top seed that would seal it. So it doesn't always happen. It can be, especially playing at home, it can be a tricky one to kind of get over the line when there's all that home support for you. But obviously he likes playing in front of a home crowd, picking up the title, obviously Indian Wells last year. In terms of the tournament as a whole, I think it was very dominated by male players. It's a shame that Ben Shelton didn't go further. I mean, American players, I should have said, but
I was going to say.
I was wondering.
I was like, you do realise this?
Yeah,
Where
I was
is
just
this
thinking
going?
that. Yes, it is dominated.
Tournament.
I would like to see more women in this draw. It was actually if Sloane's. Well, I think Sloane Stephens, wasn't she about somewhere playing an exhibition with Madison Keys? I actually think that's actually true. Not made that up. But in terms of the Fritz result, I just think it's. I'd like to get excited about Fritz, but at 250 doesn't necessarily excite me that much, considering he's only won 2 Grand Slam matches in the last year outside of Wimbledon. So I just think it's he's on sort of like on simmer for me until he does something big.
He's now into and broken the top 5 rankings.
Doesn't feel right, I don't think, personally.
He's first American to do that since Andy Roddick back in September in September 2009. So I feel like there's stuff to get excited there. But for me, this is a tournament that, yes, on paper and on court, he is fully expected to win. And I think he needs it, given he's got Indian Wells coming up, defending champion. There's going to be big points there, big pressure again. And, if he's playing like this, then I wouldn't bet against him going on another, really deep run. So I think it's nice to see him kind of come through, with this result. And I think maybe he's probably buoyed on by all the American success that we've had, particularly on the men's side this season.
And Breakpoint, maybe. Breakpoint, you got the most followers out of Breakpoint, I believe. I saw a stat on that. So maybe boosted by that extra social media following.
Well, yeah, people obviously liked what they saw. Kekmanovic also back into the top 30 after reaching his first final of the year.
No luck for Fernando Verdasco, Kim.
Oh, gosh, let's not go there. I think he's really had his day, hasn't he, now?
No, he hasn't. He's still getting the wild cards.
Well, but then he's losing in straight sets to Radu Albot. Does he want to be doing that? I'm not sure.
He should have gone to Buenos Aires and then to to Rio because
the
anyone
golden
gets in those
swing.
draws. Yeah, he could have really got some ranking points up.
Could have been out there playing the Serendolos and what have you. But just before we depart Delray Beach, Joel, my favourite comment actually that you've sort of made on our little set of notes, you've put, I quote, "It's the return of the bloody car on tennis court."
I know.
Is this a pet peeve
You've
of
made my
yours,
blood
Joel?
boil. You've made my blood boil already. Yeah, we had the sponsor car on the court. I thought we had learnt lessons from this, from the past, of cars getting dents, cars injuring players. Just put it on a platform or put it off the court. You know, we learnt from the Porsche Cup on the women's tour. There's a perfect way to do it. And just parking the car on the side of the court, it's not the way to go. But I'm not a tournament organizer, so I'm gonna leave my frustrations there.
Didn't make you want to buy the car then, let's just say that much. Let's have a look at the other men's tournament from the last week, which was out in Argentina, as we have alluded to. As another 250, the Golden Swing, outdoor clay, glorious clay. And we had, former world number one, another former world number one, back to winning ways with Carlos Alcaraz, claiming his first title of the year. He's been off the tour for several months, but he's back with a bang, back with winning ways, beating Cam Norrie in the finals 6-3, 7-5 in straight sets. I mean, again, this kind of went, I guess, to the form book, looking at the draw and the seedings and what have you. Chris, what did you make of Carlos Alcaraz in the first week back? Seeing him back on the court. He had a relatively comfortable week, dropping a set in his opener match. But what did you make of his performance back on a tennis court again?
Well, firstly, it is brilliant to have him back. I think we definitely noticed, there's an absence when it came to the Australian Open of a player who was obviously at the time ranked number one. And so I think there's always a bit of a worry when people come back that it might not be, a business as usual from the off. I think we've seen that with Dominic Thiem, a player who's, won the US Open and then had some injury issues, and he hasn't really been able to put the results together every time you think he might be. It doesn't quite happen. So I think there's always that nervousness, and say he hadn't won his first match, we might end up in a situation where confidence does come into it. But thankfully he had some good matches, and think a 3-set is the perfect way to get yourself back into it. And hopefully, he'll be back in contention at some of these bigger tournaments. But in terms of the rest of the draw, I think it's always good, to see someone who doesn't necessarily do that well on clay traditionally in Cam Norrie. I think it's clearly a bit of a focus for him this year. He's playing in Rio as well. So in terms of the British interest there, who knew that such a flat backhand could be so effective on clay?
Yeah. Do you think their tennis playing was better than their Argentinian tango dancing? I don't know if anyone saw that slightly awkward video.
I didn't see this. What was this?
They who was it? It was Norrie, Alcaraz, Thiem, and two others, I think.
What were they?
And Massetti.
Yeah.
Auditioning for Strictly Come Dancing Argentina or something?
It looked like that. It did look like that.
Well, they all got a ballroom dancer sort of latched onto them and did a bit of a spin
but
with
they were
them.
in normal clothes, so it was a bit mismatched, I have to say.
Yeah, it's on the ATP social media channels if anyone wants to watch it.
If you want to cringe, check it out, yeah.
I wonder if Cam Norrie might get signed up for Strictly at some point. But yeah, good week for Carlos, a good week for Norrie, really, getting to the final. It's no shame in losing to Alcaraz in the final there. And yeah, a good week on tour for Carlos. And I think he's very close, actually, to Novak in the rankings. He's only within, I think, about 600 points. So we may well see the number one ranking change again very soon. We'll have to see how the lie of the points land and what happens with Novak and his quest to play the various tournaments. On that note, let's take a quick break, but do join us in the second half, where we'll be discussing mixed doubles in the upcoming Tiebreak 10s event, pre-Indian Wells, what Andy Murray said that caused a stir on social media, and we'll be looking ahead at all the results so far from the latest WTA 1000 tournament in Dubai. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, sponsored by downloadtennis.com. And now we're going to look we're going to move on to a par for the courts before we look at the rest of the news and events from the last week on tour. Chris, I believe you've got one up your sleeve for me and Joel this week, which does mean you can't win this week. I hope you're aware of that.
But hopefully it means that Kim can still lose.
Oh
No. I am fully
Joel
backing
the spoon
Kim.
of shame again. How about that?
Yes, we can bring that one back out, Joel. I think there's a reason why you seem to always be the quiz master when it comes to.
Oh, you think I'm scared of losing, so I'm always the quiz master?
I just think you know that the real battles are between Kim and I in terms of some of those.
Yeah, you're not. To be fair, you're not wrong.
Head-to-heads
You are
we've
not
had.
wrong.
Fighting talk.
Well, I thought I always think I could do something pretty evil with these, and I decided that this time I'd go for something that was relatively topical.
Okay.
It is obviously Novak Djokovic, who has now been ranked as the world number one player for a record equaling 377 weeks, which is matching Steffi Graf on that one. But that's the highest number of weeks at number one. And I thought we could take a trip down memory lane and name number one players, but not just any number one players who have been world number one on the ATP Tour for more than 10 weeks.
Ooh, more than 10 weeks, ATP number ones.
Ooh.
Okay.
I feel like there's quite a lot. Is there quite a lot there?
What year
There
is
are
this?
20 answers.
Ooh, okay.
And
What
we're
year is it
talking
from?
open era.
Okay, right. Well, who wants to go first, Joel?
Well, Joel has to, doesn't he? He needs the
Okay.
help.
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
I do.
okay. Right.
Novak Djokovic.
Roger Federer.
Rafael Nadal.
Andy Murray.
Okay, I'm already struggling. No. Leighton Hewitt.
Pete Sampras.
Andre Agassi.
Very good.
John McEnroe.
Jim Courier.
That is correct.
Whew. This is when you think a really obvious person
I know.
actually
That's like,
isn't
I'm
right.
like,
Yeah.
what's that boundary between non-open era and open era? Yeah.
Bjorn Borg.
Indeed.
Boris Becker.
Yes, that's correct.
Jimmy Connors.
Yep.
I think I just said Jimmy Connors, Kim.
No, you said Jim Courier.
Oh, did I?
Courier.
I definitely meant Jim. I definitely meant.
I thought you meant him. I thought that was a bit rogue for you.
I did think Jim Courier was a bit rogue.
Gustavo Kuerten.
It's the correct answer.
Oh, that's a good one. I've got people in my mind, but I'm just questioning the 10 weeks now. Rod Laver.
I think that's
I
pre-open
think
era.
that falls foul of
Well, I
open
thought-
era,
Yeah.
Kim.
I thought, hang on. I thought he merged the gap. You know, I thought he was like at the very start.
Is
of
he
the
on the
open
list,
era.
Chris?
He's not on the list.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Joel wins.
Come on.
Joel has won.
Come on.
I will have to
Oh.
say, though, Joel does... I mean, maybe he knew this, cutting it very fine with Boris Becker with 12 weeks.
Really? Only
Oh.
12 weeks? Wow.
I mean, considering his pay at the
How?
BBC, that's quite surprising.
I should have just said Alcaraz because he's more than 10 weeks, isn't
Yes, Alcaraz was also correct answer at 20 weeks.
he? Medvedev.
Medvedev at 16 weeks. Andy Roddick at 13.
Ivan Lendl?
Carlos Moya.
Lendl, of course, absolutely. Carlos Moya did not make the
Oh.
number for that. You could have had Mats
Marat Safin.
Wilander, you could have had. Marat Safin was below.
Oh.
Lil Nasty, you could have had. Also on the list, Stefan Edberg.
Yeah.
And then the final ones that weren't mentioned, I don't think, and we say John McEnroe, we might have,
Yeah.
but
I
apart
did,
from that,
yeah.
you said everybody. So there were a few current players you could have had, and I think that that was very generous of you, Kim. to let Joel
I
have
know.
the win.
I went too old school and failed. I should have gone for like.
I'm not gonna lie, I
Alcaraz.
definitely meant Jimmy Connors and not Jim Courier was the more I think about it, that was a wild guess.
I mean, yeah,
It was.
I was wondering if you were meaning him, but anyway, it's all good. Well done, Joel. I've got
Well done, Joel.
spoon of shame
Come
this
on.
week.
Come on.
Spoon of shame.
Let's have a look at what's in our mailbag this week, because Jackie has got in touch with us on Twitter. Thank you, Jackie. Jackie has said that Andy Murray recently announced cheekily that he wanted to get into politics after his playing days are over. And I don't know if this was because of the whole Nicola Sturgeon resigning news, because I think she then quoted his tweet. So anyway, the question from Jackie was, which other tennis players do you think would make good politicians and why? I know there have been already some tennis players who've gone into politics. But yeah, Joel, have you got an immediate thought of who you think would be a credible candidate for politician in somewhere around the world?
Because Andy Murray tweeted, interesting vacancy, was looking to get into politics when I finished playing. And I don't know if he was joking or being serious.
Well, he's never going to finish playing,
joking.
Joel. He's going to keep playing when he's 99. He'll still be on the tennis court.
Yeah.
Metal body.
He's a robot. No. No, I mean, instant names that came into my head. One good, one not so good. Roger Federer, I just think universal appeal, approval ratings in Switzerland would be through the roof. So I could see that. And then on the other side, I was thinking, politicians, they normally get a bad rap and a bad image, shady dealings. So, of course, Boris Becker. I know we just said him, but Boris Becker, never too far from controversy. So I feel like he would fit right in as a politician.
Hopefully he wouldn't be too much like the other Boris, but well, we don't know. Like the name might
I mean,
things.
sort of similar colour hair, right?
There are some skeletons in that closet, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I the first person that came to my mind was Novak Djokovic, because we've seen with the PTPA.
Oh,
he's
yes.
very sort of forward thinking, likes to sort of lead and get involved in things, and I can totally see him being like a future president of Serbia, because he's I think nationally he's
a hero.
favoured son of Serbia, and I think if there was an election he would win by a landslide if he was to put himself forward at home in Serbia. So that was the first person that came to my mind. Chris, what about you?
Well, I've gone for a sort of a keep it in the family kind of approach to this one. I've gone for Maria Sakkari because, interesting fact, her boyfriend Konstantinos Mitsotakis is actually the son of the Greek Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis.
I didn't mention that, great point.
Well, I thought potentially that might give her that insight into, what happens in the political sphere, and I think that could be.
Is that going to unlock her semi-final hoodoo? Then is that what you're saying?
Well, I was also thinking, what would be a positive thing that could happen off the court for Sakkari, to avoid some of the pitfalls that can happen on the tennis court. I think once you've been elected, obviously you can get yourself into some trouble, but it's just one election and then she can relax a little bit, hopefully, for a few years. But I think Sakkari would be my bet there.
I don't think you want a politician who can get in and then just relax for a few years.
Well, I mean, she won't have to play a tie break for a while, is what I'm meaning. A final set tie break. They're out of the equation.
Talking of tiebreak, that brings us on to very nicely a new event that's been announced called the Eisenhower Cup, which actually, it's not really a new event per se. It's kind of the annual pre-Indian Wells tiebreak tens exhibition that normally happens. But they're doing a mixed doubles format this year, and it's being called the Eisenhower Cup. But there's some quite fun pairings actually being announced. It's not necessarily done by sort of nationality, because we've got some sort of mixed national pairs, but we've got the likes of Arina Sabalenka playing with Taylor Fritz. We've got Ons Jabeur teaming up with Casper Ruud. We've got future Prime Minister of Greece Maria Sakkari with Stefanos Tsitsipas. and Iga Swiatek and Hubert Hurkacz, and Emma Raducanu is playing with Cameron Norrie. So, lots going on. It's quite fun. Joel, what do you make of the Eisenhower Cup?
Yeah, I think it could be quite fun, quite interesting. It made me realise actually, like, there's not much. When you get to these big, high-profile events, there's not really much mixed action kind of going on when both, the ATP and WTA tours meet. It's very, we've got men's singles and men's doubles, and we've got women's singles and women's doubles. But I don't know, is there an opportunity, given, the more of a spotlight that mixed and the combined format is coming under, is there an opportunity for more, I'm not saying like massive draws, but is there an opportunity for like a 16 person mixed doubles draw, perhaps a future event is what I was thinking off the back of this, because some of these pairings are really fun. I know it's going to be kind of exhibition style, but I think people will get quite into it, and I want to see how Swiatek and Hurkacz get on, because I thought they were one of the stories of the United Cup earlier on in the season. So be curious to see how they do, and also Raducanu and Cam Norrie.
Yeah, Chris, is there any particular pairing that really catches your eye amongst the ones announced?
Well, for those of you who follow us on Twitter, quick plug for Tennis Weekly Pod on Twitter, but I have been tweeting about this when I saw it, and it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek tweet. I did say my prediction was that Casper and Ons will lose in the final for obvious reasons. I know. It's much more above board than that normally, but I think that will be an exciting one. I'm looking forward to the flair of Ons, the shot-making of Ons in a tie-break, with the reliability of a player dependability of Casper. I think those two personalities, I'm looking to see how that gels. I think that would be particularly interesting. But if I had to bet money on it, Jessie Pegula is cleaning up on the doubles court. I think fresh from her title in Doha, defending the title. And I think put her with anyone, and I'd probably think that she's got a good shot on the doubles court with the play that she's got, with the form she's got at the moment.
Yeah, I have to say, I think the Pegula-Paul pairing might be quite good, especially given Tommy Paul, good form out in Australia. And yeah, Pegula and Goff won the Doha doubles just last week, so defending their title there. But this is all, for those of you who don't know what tiebreak tens is, it happens all in the space of one evening. There's first to 10-point tiebreak matches, and it's a sort of elimination draw, so 7 matches all in the course of one evening. So it's really a fun event, and I think it's nice that they're doing it. And like you said, Joel, I would love to see maybe some small mixed draws at these kind of mixed Masters series events. I think that would be really fun.
I mean, if they're going to be, I think it'll be interesting to see how like competitive they are. I just feel like if you're playing with players of your same nation and you're going to be playing against players of the same nation, I feel like it's hard to take that competitive element out of it. So I'd be curious to see how intensely they take it on the eve of in Indian Wells proper.
Absolutely. Let's just look at what we've got this week. There's already been some results actually in play. On the men's side this week, we've got Marseille and we've got Doha, which are both 250 events. We've also got the 500 out in Rio. For the women, it's mostly the WTA 1000 in Dubai. There's also a 250 out in Mexico, the Merida Open. But Andy Murray has already been providing entertainment and drama as usual, funnily enough, against Lorenzo Sonego, who has spent more than 1 second on a tennis court, because they actually played each other, and it was a 2.5 hour long match. Andy Murray saving 3 match points. Joel, big Murray fan, what did you make of his
lovely
match with Sonego?
Are we ever just going to get an unproblematic Andy Murray victory? Because it doesn't feel like we're going to get one anytime soon. I was curious to see how this was going to go, because he got a wild card, had a very wild Australian Open, very memorable Australian Open. So I was keen to see him continue that form. Looks like he has been able to, in the same Andy Murray vein that we know, fighting to the bitter end. And it's also great to see Liam Brody as well come through qualifying. He's in the second round. We've got Murray versus Zverev, and we've got Liam Brody, Daniil Medvedev. So I thought, that could be quite an interesting one. I mean, Daniil Medvedev, Rotterdam to Doha rather than Rotterdam to maybe Marseille was a bit of an interesting one to me. But I'd be curious to see how that goes.
Probably more money in Doha, I would imagine.
I mean, the field actually in Doha is pretty tasty because, I was looking at it compared to the Rio Open, which is a 500. I mean, the draws in Doha and, to be honest, in Marseille, they are stronger than what is being served up in Rio, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, it often happens. A lot of players don't really want to go and play the clay court events out in South
It's
America.
hard to
do
convince
they?
people, I feel, to go play that 500 if you haven't already played the build-up 250s out in South America.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose all eyes really, especially on the women's side, the big event out in Dubai, the 1000 event. If you look at the first round draws, I mean, it's like the semi-finals of a Grand Slam, really. So some of the matchups that you kind of got, it's such a stacked field. But we were saying that about Doha last week, and then look what happened. Swiatek wins very comfortably. But Chris, do you have your eye on any particular matchups that are due to hopefully take place in Dubai? And any
He's
dark
definitely more
horses or
looking at the
contenders?
Merida Open, where Sloane
I was going to
Stephens.
say, I'm in Merida.
Sloane
I'll
Stephens
throw
is
you
the
a bone,
second
Kit.
seed.
Yeah, I'll throw you a,
Stevens.
yeah, I was about to say, I'll throw you a bone. I'm saying I'm very much looking forward to, we've got a tasty section of the draw there, which is Garcia, Keys, Anisimova, and Azarenka. One of those is going through to make, I think that would only be a quarter-final. So that just shows you how stacked that field is. And then if you look a bit further down in some of the less high-profile tournaments, I'm obviously in Mexico, where Joel and I think, will be glued to this. We've got his favourite, Magdalene Goatnet, is back in action as the number 1 seed, and my favourite, Sloane Stephens, the number 2 seed. And also throw in an Alicia Parks, and I think that's Joel's dream tournament. So I think we might be over in Mexico.
And Chris, Parks and Stephens are playing with each other in the doubles. So
Are they?
Yeah, so
They're on court right now.
they're on court right now.
actually.
Yeah, so
Are they? I'm going to have to set an alarm on my phone for those matches.
the meeting, the metaphorical meeting of 2/3 of the Tennis Weekly podcast happening right now.
They just need
Goodness.
Caroline Garcia down the other end of the court
yes.
to make it
Oh,
all three
yes.
of us.
I think
on
we'd have booked a
court.
flight then. I'm pretty sure we would have booked a flight.
We would have gone there, forced our way into media. Yeah, definitely.
We can expense it.
Oh, God.
No, we can't.
Sorry.
But yeah, on that note, I mean, we'll be back next week to talk about how Sloane Stephens got on in Merida.
Doubles only.
Doubles only, of course. I'm also curious to see if Cam Norrie is just going to play Alcaraz again in the final of Rio and lose, as happened last week. I feel like that could be quite a likely outcome. But yeah, we'll be back next week to round up all of those events as usual. And we'll also catch up on how Joel enjoyed his pancakes and how the pepperoni inside the crate worked or not.
I've got to go follow through now, haven't I? I'm going to go to the shops right now and get stocked up. No, yes. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from the ATP and WTA Tours.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every major podcasting platform out there. And if you like what you're hearing, and that means if you like the pancake chat, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Tennis Weekly Pod, or you can email the show at tennisweeklypod@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out our website, www.tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next Monday at Tennis Weekly HQ for another tour catch-up. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.